You know, before a top-tier tech even thinks about grabbing a wrench to work on a steering system, they live by a certain code. It's this set of principles that make sure every single job is done safely, professionally, and, most importantly, right the first time. So let's dive into that code, principle by principle, and really see what separates a pro from an amateur. I mean, just think about it for a second. The steering system, that is the one single critical link that takes what the driver wants to do and makes it happen on the road. It's the difference between a smooth, safe turn and a total disaster. And when it comes to this system, there is absolutely zero room for error, none. And yeah, that leads to a really important question you have to ask yourself. When you put your hands on this system, you are taking on a massive responsibility. You're responsible for the driver's safety, their passengers, and literally everyone else sharing that road. I mean, the stakes really don't get any higher than this. So here's our game plan. We're going to walk through 5 core principles that are the bedrock of any professional steering service. And we'll start with the most fundamental one of all. You've got to know exactly what you're working on. All right, first things first. Principle number 1 is all about gathering intel. Before you do anything else, you have to correctly identify the type of steering system that's sitting right in front of you. Getting this right from the get-go, well, that pretty much decides every single thing you're going to do next. So this table gives you a quick rundown of the big 4 families of steering systems. You've got your basic manual system, which is all driver muscle. Then you have EPAS, that's electric power assisted steering, which uses motors and sensors. Next up are hydraulic systems with their engine-driven pumps. And finally, full hydraulic, which you'll usually see on heavy equipment, and it has no mechanical link at all. Knowing which one you're dealing with is absolutely crucial. And this right here, this quote just nails why that identification is so important. If you mistake an electric system for a hydraulic one, you're going to be on a wild goose chase for fluids that aren't even there. You'll be using procedures that aren't just wrong, they could actually be dangerous. Okay, let's build on that and move to our second principle. Once you know the type of system, you've got to know the key players on the team, the components themselves. This is like mapping out the terrain before you even think about taking a step. So, every part has its role, right? In a rack and pinion setup, you've got your tie rod ends and knuckles. In a recirculating ball system, you're looking at things like the pitman arm. And then the power systems add another whole layer, pumps and hoses for hydraulic, or sensors and motors for electric. You simply have to know these parts and what they do to perform a real meaningful inspection. So here's the kicker. You cannot find a fault if you don't even know what a healthy part is supposed to look like. Missing something as simple as a torn boot on a tie rod end, that isn't some tiny mistake. That's a failure that could literally lead to a complete and sudden loss of steering while someone is driving. This brings us to something that is absolutely non-negotiable: safety. And listen, these aren't just recommendations or good ideas. These are the hard and fast rules of engagement that protect you, your coworkers, and the vehicle you're working on. Before a single tool comes out, that vehicle must be completely isolated and stabilized. We're talking wheel chocks, jack stands, a properly used hoist, the whole deal. Any fluids have to be handled safely and legally, and you have to scope out all the potential hazards before you even start the job. A great technician is a safe technician, period. And let's be crystal clear about what's at stake here. An unstable vehicle isn't just a risk, it's a potential death trap. This isn't about making things convenient. It's about preventing a serious, life-altering injury. And that same level of professionalism applies to handling fluids to prevent slips and protect the environment. Okay, so the vehicle is secure. Now we can get into principle number 4, the inspection. And this is not just a quick glance around. No way. A professional inspection is like being a detective. You are actively on the hunt for very specific clues that point to a problem. The process is super methodical. First, you analyze for wear, checking for any kind of play or looseness in the components. Second, you inspect for leaks, tracing the entire hydraulic circuit if there is one. And third, you check for physical damage, any bent parts, cracks, or serious corrosion. This 3-point check, that's your minimum standard. And here is the key that separates the pros from the amateurs. Your findings don't mean a thing without a baseline to compare them to. The manufacturer specifications, that's your rule book. It's what lets you go from saying, this feels a bit loose, to making a concrete, objective, evidence-based recommendation for a repair. All right, we're on the home stretch. Principle number 5. This is all about executing the repair with total precision and, this is huge, verifying your work. The job isn't done just because your tools are back in the box. This slide right here drives home a critical detail that can wreck all your hard work: choosing the right fluid. Use the correct specified fluid, and the system runs safe and sound. But if you grab the wrong bottle, you could be looking at damaged seals, new leaks, and maybe even catastrophic system failure. This quote is a perfect and kind of scary reminder of that fact. Just imagine, you do a flawless repair, but because you use the wrong fluid, the customer's car now has a brand new dangerous leak that wasn't there before. See, selecting the right product is just as critical as turning the wrench itself. And that brings us to the final, absolute must-do step, post-service testing. This is your proof. It's the confirmation that the repair actually worked, and more importantly, that the system is functioning correctly and is 100% safe before you hand those keys back to the customer. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this thought. At the end of any steering system job, this is the ultimate question a true professional asks themselves. It's not enough for the problem to be gone. The system has to be proven, documented, and verifiably safe. That is the standard.